So,
Andy.
thank you for joining us. I mean, it's been a few years since you guys played at this exact venue.
Yeah, a
Elektro
couple of
Vox.
years ago.
I mean, you played Manchester last night and Scotland the night before. How's the UK treating you? Do you like it when you come over here?
Yeah, we were looking forward to coming back for sure. It had been a couple of years, but we used that time basically to, 1 year was like all devoted to our side project, Hex Heart, and then after that I wrote the new God Module record, so it kind of, that's what the time frame worked out for. But yeah, it's been good so far.
Yeah. Okay.
We really love playing in Scotland, mainly just because we like to go and do touristy shit, you know. So it's just so beautiful the higher you go up. So
Okay.
it was really cool.
Okay, so where did the name God Module come from? Like, what's the meaning and where was the inspiration for that?
It was like 22 years ago, and I was watching an episode of the X-Files, and there was a situation where there was an alien that had they realized this person was part alien because they had a part of their brain that was working more than the other ones. But the whole thing was, I looked into it, and it actually came from a scientific idea where people who had epilepsy were more prone to have religious visions, and there's part of your brain which is called the God module, which if it's more active, you're more prone to believe in religious ideas.
Okay.
And if not, you're not. So it's kind of like a hardwired into your brain way to control you. So.
Okay, your album, The Unsound, which came out in
Yep.
2012, I'm guessing it's doing pretty well. I mean, it's quite an emotive and sort of emotionally heavy album. So what's the story and the theme behind it?
Just me. I was going through a lot of weird shit, nothing like really negative, but it's just a process. I think when you're creating something new, after you've created so many other things in the past, you don't want to do the same thing, and you don't want to do something too different at the same time, and so it's a lot of internal struggle with yourself, I think, and I think that came out some in the lyrics and definitely in the process. It was one of the hardest records I spent a lot of time alone, isolated myself a little bit too much, I think, from some of my friends, and but at the end I was really happy with the way that it came out. But I think if anything comes out of it where you do notice that there's some traumatic weirdness in it, it's probably just all internal, really.
Okay. I mean, on that point, I mean, you've been putting music out for God Module since about, what, 2002?
Yeah, right around then, yeah.
And in that time, you've become one of the sort of gods of industrial. Like, everyone knows who you are.
Yeah.
You know, you are sort of famous in the industrial scene.
Mm-hmm.
So has that success ever really sunk in for you?
I mean, I notice it, and I appreciate it, and I'm very happy that we have it, and it's a lot less of a struggle than it used to be when we were trying to, like, it was hard to get gigs or hard to get club play or get people to actually pay attention to us. So that part of it has changed. I think the way the music industry changed, that the sad part is we probably had more financial success with the first couple records because of the fact that people still bought so many CDs compared to streaming and everything now. Not that it's a bad situation financially for us. It's just overall, it's not like I wake up every day and I'm like, hey, I'm famous, you know. But it's like, and it's such a dichotomy from where your normal life is still your normal life. You still hang out with your friends, you still do normal stuff, and then 2 or 3 months a year you go and you either go, like last year we went and played Wave Gothic in front of thousands of people, and then just the other night, like in Manchester, we played to not 1,000 people, more like a few people, and some lady came up to me actually, and she was like, you know, every time I've seen you, it's been in front of like hundreds or thousands of people, and how do you feel about playing these gigs now, you know? But it's like, it's not like a bad thing, it's more just part of being in the scene, I think. I think if you look at it, if you're making industrial music or you grew up liking this kind of stuff, and you're thinking you're going to become like fucking U2 or something, it's not going to happen, you know? And if you don't care enough about what you're doing to let that part of your ego go, you know, I think you just shouldn't be doing it anyway.
Yeah,
So,
it's a small but tight-knit community.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
it means more to people when you
Yeah.
obviously get to see you. And
I wrote a song one time called Fake Fame, And I think that kind of sums up the idea I have towards this. It's like, it is fame, but then when I tell like people who are outside of the scene about it, I just always say, I'm kind of like fake famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really, but it's kind of. It's different.
And so how did you get into industrial music? I mean, what made you decide to...
I just grew up obsessed with music. I started off being into like punk and got into the Damned and the Misfits, and that kind of brought me into goth, and I found Bauhaus and different bands like Christian Death and death rock, and from there I was introduced to Skinny Puppy one time, and it changed my life, and The Cure has always been a huge influence on me. But that all brought me into the industrial scene, and then like bands like Front 242 and Skinny Puppy and Nitzareb, they were like the main thing. But then when I heard like the Zoth Almog movement, like in the early 90s, with X Marks the Pedwalk and Leather Strip, and the fact that it was using more techno elements, that's when I decided I want to do this, so I figured out how to do it, and it was hard back then because there was no internet, because I'm old as fuck, and so it took a while, but it's like I traded in my drum kit that I used to play drums in like a bunch of punk bands and stuff, but traded that in for a drum machine, which we were just talking about last night, which is scary to say. Yeah, and it's like just from there on, just kept going.
Yeah, and you have that other side to Hex Art,
yeah,
which some people may not have heard of. So
yeah, it's not.
What is Hex Art and what's the sound of it?
Well, it's really just stuff that I wanted to get out that didn't really seem to fit with God Module. And like I said, I mentioned earlier bands like The Cure and stuff. I've always had a huge affinity towards like post-punk and different things, and even synth pop, which is basically how most God Module songs start off, and then they get a little harder. But it was something that I wanted to do, and sadly, I mean, I think a lot of people wouldn't say it, but I'm not totally happy with the way that the first Hex Art record came out, because I think it's a little too God Module-y. But so I plan on changing it. But the way I want to do it is I don't want it to be what's the best way to say it?
Set.
Yeah, I don't want it to be a set thing. I don't want people to think it always has to be post-punk, because the next record might be a synth pop record, but it'll just be me and Andrew and whoever else we decide to work with, which will bring in different sounds. Just getting different things out that I wanted to do.
So it's your experimental stuff.
Yeah, totally. I didn't want to change so many bands, especially these days. Like, you get a drummer and a guitar player, and next thing you know, your old favorite industrial band is a metal band.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
there's a few of them.
I don't want to do that. I wanted God Module's God Module, and then whatever else I want to do, I'll do under Hex Art.
You've shared the stage with obviously pretty much everyone now in the industrial scene. Who's been your favourite person to share the stage with?
That's a hard one.
Both of you.
Well, it's an experience Andrew wasn't there for, and this will probably come as a surprise for some people, but we opened up for a psychobilly band called Tiger Army. You've heard of them before? I don't know. But they're a big influence on me, and they asked me to play keyboards in their band, and they do this thing every year in the States where they do a Halloween show, and they usually get like random bands that don't really fit in with the aesthetic of what their crowd expects, but since they're awesome people, they're into the industrial scene, and so they get like hard punk bands, industrial bands, and so they asked us to do that. That was probably one of the biggest things for me, I think.
Okay.
What would you say, Andrew?
Kind of the Doyle one for the same reason.
Oh yeah.
Because he's a guitar player for the Misfits. We opened for them. There were like two punk bands before them, and we came on, and no one had any idea what it was.
Yeah.
And then the whole crowd just turned into a crazy mosh pit during our set, and it was just totally cool and different.
And just the fact that it's
Doyle too.
It's the dude from the Misfits.
Yeah, and we got to play right before.
Yeah, and I've been like going to Danzig shows
Yeah.
since I was like 16, so it was like, this is the dude who actually plays guitar for fucking Danzig, so it was cool that they let us play. So
And the
cool.
other weird one was when we opened for our friend Trevor's band, The Witch Was Right, and we were sound checking, and then suddenly Davey Havoc from AFI was standing next to us sound checking. We were just kind of like, whoa, this is weird.
So sadly, you're asking this industrial band who
we don't got it.
We're throwing all here's Psychobilly band and fucking Davey Havoc from Black Audio.
That's what you don't expect.
Yeah, we're huge fans of Davies, and I love AFI, I love Black Audio.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It was a weird
That
experience.
was a big deal, yeah.
Okay, so what album of yours would you say you're most proud of doing?
My favorite album is Seance. I notice it more, like I don't even think about it as much, but anytime I'm putting the set list together, it's hard for me to realize, like I'm like, well fuck, we've thrown like 6 songs from this one record, and I always go back to it because I feel like it was like, that was overall, production-wise, musically, the way I wrote it, I feel like that's the best God Module record. And of course I don't care or expect anybody else to feel the same way. But yeah, for me, that was the thing for me.
Okay. And a close friend of mine who couldn't make it today, unfortunately, he asked, how do you manage to fit such long and eloquent words into what is essentially a really fast beat? Because the lyrics you put across are like really verbose and impressive in the amount of meaning you can get through. So.
And I feel like we've talked about this on this tour too, which is funny. The last couple records, like False Face and Prophecy, I almost feel like we're too wordy for me personally. It's just me, it's like I tried on this new record to try to write a little bit more streamlined and focus more on choruses rather than just blah 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 blah, because sometimes I do feel like I have a lot to say and a lot of people have no idea what the fuck I'm saying, but to me it's important. So it does come out that way. But yeah, I've always had, I think my whole thing is lyrics are always just as important as the music to me. And so when you hear some bands that the lyrics just completely fucking suck, it's like I don't get the point of them. Why you're not just a instrumental band, So yeah, I just try to make sure that every song means something to me, because obviously I'm making it, and if it didn't, it's a waste of time.
Okay. And what life lessons have you learned from having God Module?
Whew. Life lessons. Well, I learned that not everybody is as they seem to be when you first meet them. There's a lot of people, especially in the scene, that have a lot of ego problems and a lot of passive aggressiveness. And I guess there's been times where I've put too much into some people, into some things, and with this, it showed me that I need to open my eyes a little bit more sometimes.
And finally, do you have anything to say to your fans?
Thank you. Really. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, we're only here because you guys give a fuck and listen to it on Spotify or download it or steal it or whatever the fuck you do. You still come out to the shows, buy our merch, show up, give us a reason to keep doing it, and I don't have to have a fucking job because of it, so thank you so fucking much, I mean, I don't know if it'll happen forever, but for now, it's an amazing ride and appreciate it more than anything.
No? Well, thank you very much for your
Of course, man.
And thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.